This is Kev Millar from the 2004 World Champion Boston Red Sox, and you're listening to Boston's Big Three podcast presented by Ride the Wave Media.
All right, everybody, welcome back to Boston's Big Three. Today is episode 67. Boston's Big Three is presented by Ride the Wave Media. Today, we are sponsored by GuyBostonSports.com. Check out GuyBostonSports.com. Check out the store for all different unique Celtics, Bruins, Patriots, Red Sox. I mean, they stink. No one's going to buy Red Sox stuff. But they got different things in their store for different T-shirt things. I will be repping a little Guy Boston Sports in the future. You'll see it when I'm repping. It'll make everyone's head spin when the time comes. For everyone who is listening, I was just gabbing right there. But nonetheless, guys, we're going to just jump right in this today. Today, right now, when we're recording this, is at 10 p.m., 10:30 p.m., Tuesday, July 28th. I'm hoping this gets released on Wednesday, July 29th. I want this released as quick as possible. But our producer, Brendan Watabe, who does an excellent job, I can't force him. I'm not putting a gun to his head. We'll just see what happens. We want to recap everything that happened today on Tuesday, July 28th, which I hope, July 28th. Big day for Patriots Nation. I mean, this was the day that you knew that the whole team was going to report, and already you had multiple opt-outs. Now, I'm just going to throw this out there right to start. If you've been following Spike King or you've been following Ride the Wave, some of this shit is already stuff that we put out there. Number one, Marcus Cannon opted out officially today. Ride the Wave Media NFL, so 2-minute drill, myself, we broke that news in February that Marcus Cannon was going to retire. We put that out there. Now, I'm sure that you're out there and you guys got it wrong. You didn't retire. You opted out. It's the same fucking thing in my mind. There was absolutely no way that this guy was even going to play this season. We had that first. And here's another thing. I knew he was opting out last week. And the problem with doing this at Ride the Wave or being Spike King is no one treats us like a legitimate media company because we don't break news. We really don't. We rub elbows here and there with certain people. So I understand we've gotten things wrong in the past, like the Jersey gate. I've had my own incidents in the past, and people aren't going to take the shit I say serious. We do have some loyal followers that know that even said after today, like, you called that shit a long time ago. You've been putting that stuff out there. On Thursday, I reached out to Big Jim Murray because I like him, 98.5 The Sports Hub. I told him, I have proof that Cannon is going to, he's going to opt out. Here it is. I trust you not to ruin my source. And I said, run with it. Guess what? He did on Friday. He ran with it. Then he really ran with it on Saturday. And Big Jim Murray got the credit for it. But he knows where it comes from. And then I got shut down on Felger and Maz today because Maz didn't want to hear my another hot take, which I'm going to throw it out there. Not even a hot take. It's breaking news, and I'll put it out there shortly. Number two, Brandon Bolden, I was told about it this morning. I tried calling 98.5 and they wouldn't get me through in time, and I was panicking. And I tweeted it before anybody else was out. Bolden's next. No one else had it, but guess what? I get one like. No one cares about my Twitter. No one's gonna care about my Instagram. What did I do on Instagram? I posted a picture of Brandon Bolden and said another one, DJ Khaled, and that was before anything broke. But no one's gonna take my shit serious. What did I do? I turn around. I see my old pal Fitzy. Love what he does on EEI. He's been a grinder, and I see him as a mentor. I give him that nugget. What happens? He puts it out there, gets retweeted by Mike Reese, gets it out there by Adam Schefter. He had an awesome day. So I just want to take those two instances right there of Cannon and Brandon Bolden and just pat myself on the back and ride the wave because I know you guys know that I know this stuff too. It's not like it's just I'm throwing shit out of thin air. When it comes to Dante Hightower, I was told back in February, which I've said it to you guys, and I think I've said it here on the podcast, that he's lost the love of the game for football. And I thought that this was going to be his last season, no matter which way you look at it. He was just going to earn his bread. He had about $11 million to $12 million he was going to get paid and then say, see you later. And I know that the Patriots weren't going to do him dirty. They weren't going to cut him. Now that COVID's here, and the Hightower news, I didn't know about it until obviously it broke like everybody else. That's a big name. The Hightower thing in my mind, and if you guys have seen it already, is that he made a very professional graphic, or whoever made it for him. Maybe Stafford edits did it. I don't know. And it was about his time in New England, and it was why his decision of COVID. And he just had a baby. He just had a baby a couple weeks ago. That to me seemed like a retirement statement. It's the way he wrote it. It reminds me of Tom Brady when he was thanking the New England fans. And if you look back on hindsight, it looked like his goodbye to the fans. This is the same way it looks for Hightower. But the Hightower thing, I didn't put it out there, but I kind of knew that. This brings me to my final point. I posted another picture, Chung and the McCourties. What happened after I posted the Chung thing? Chung ended up opting out like an hour or two later. When it comes down to the McCourty twins, they will opt out this week. They are going to opt out. Whether that's you believe me, whether you just say, well, you're making a guess and it's probably going to be right. I don't care. I'm telling you right now, and we were saying this right off the air before I had Joe Stafford and I were talking. McCourty's is, I said, it's as big as Hightower. He thinks it's bigger than Hightower, especially when it comes to both of them. And they're both that leader under Bill Belichick, more so Devin. They are going to opt out. And I feel like they're waiting for time to happen. I was told by somebody on the front office today and DM'd me. I got people on the inside, dude. There's people that actually like Spike King and they like what goes on. They feed you information here and there. And he said reality set in today for these players once they showed up and had to get testing. Then it started being like, oh shit, this is what it's going to be like every day, daily testing and going through this. There are some players that are still on the fence. And I think that today's first wave of opt-outs, there were 6 total. I know some were stringing back on Monday in the weekend, like Dan Vitale, the other guy that opted out, which I don't even know how to say his name. And then you had Brandon Bolden, Cannon, Hightower. There are going to be more players that opt out this week. And I think this was something good. And I picked this off of Reddit from somebody else that said this and said, Hightower is such a big established name in that locker room, right? And Marcus Cannon, a veteran himself. Some of these players might see Hightower opting out or Patrick Chung and saying, you know what? I think I'm going to stand up and leave now too. If he's leaving and doing that for his family, I think that I have the right deep down inside that I can do the same thing because they're stepping away from the game. We don't know what goes on inside. We don't know what Belichick's, and I feel like Belichick's comfortable enough to say if anyone wants to leave, that's absolutely fine. There are certain people that need to stay, that need to play because they know they're fighting for a job. Another name that wouldn't shock me is James White. James White's having a kid. His wife is, I don't know if he had a kid 9 months ago or what's up. James White's going to secure the bag even if he opts out this season. He comes back next year. They trade his rights, whatever it is. This is the thing for some of these guys is who's made their money, who's made their bread, who's gotten their Super Bowls. Is it really worth to play it this year? You know, it is for some of these guys like Chase Winovich needs to play. Jawan Bentley needs to play. Those are guys that ain't opting out. They ain't going anywhere. Damian Harris needs to play. Stidham needs to play. Cam Newton needs to play. There are some of those guys that might be like, I've been here with the Pats for a couple of years. I've got my money secured. I've done this or that. It's time to walk away from the game. My whole take of this today was it wasn't shocking that these players opted out. It's just funny to see that, wow, like these are big names and a lot of it did come from the Patriots. I just think that you're going to see more of it over the week, especially when it comes to McCourties. I think that in Bill we trust. The tank for Trevor talk came right up again today, and it's just like this team is not going to do it. Dante Stallworth, shout out to him saying this guy will coach during the apocalypse or whatever. Like that was funny. That was a funny quote. The Pats will still be fine. This is just going to benefit Belichick somehow, some way when it comes down. And when it comes down to cap money, cap space, they're not going to go out and get clowny. They're not going to go out and spend this money. They don't have to spend this money. This shit can roll over to next year. They'll have the money to spend it next year. This is just something that Belichick's going to take what he has. He's going to use September as his preseason, and they're rolling with the punches. Are you expecting the New England Patriots to win the Super Bowl this year? No, I don't think anybody is this year. You know that with the departure of Tom Brady. They're not a Super Bowl contending favorite. Are they a favorite to still win the AFC East? Yeah. Are they a favorite to go to the playoffs? Yeah. Can they go to the AFC Championship game? Yeah. That's where the line stops this year. The expectations are a little bit more down. Maybe Belichick knows that. He's still going to fucking try to win it all. Absolutely. But I want to toss this over today. We have Joe Stafford and Jay the Pats fan on. I'm going to toss this over to Jay the Pats fan first and give us your reaction across the board with the opt-outs. What you think going forward. Does this benefit anybody out there? And I've said it in the past, and we've said it, Yodny Kajus. He's someone that slides right in for Marcus Cannon. Shout out to Justin Zolat too.
Zolat, yeah.
Yeah, Justin Zolat to call that out. Give us your take, Jay. Talk to us.
Here's the thing. These opt-outs, it doesn't matter. The season's not going to be played. I've been saying that for months now. There's just no way that in a game of football where you're touching and sweating and breathing all over everybody. I mean, you got baseball where you're barely interacting with people, and the Marlins had 14 people because they traveled. Well, the NFL is not in a bubble. The NFL is going to travel. They're going to be in planes. They're going to be in hotels, and they're going to do all that stuff. So I don't think that the season's going to happen. But let's play the hypothetical, and let's imagine that the COVID disappears for some reason and that the season happens. This is big. This is big for just for the locker room presence alone. Like let's also look at the fact that we all agree that the McCourty twins are going to opt out as well. And those are, as far as I'm mistaken, that's 2 captains, right? You have McCourty and Hightower. That's 2 captains off the team. That's huge. Right off the bat, locker room presence. You have Brady's gone. You have Gronk, who's already been gone, but he's gone. You have McCourty and Hightower. Those are basically senior leadership. Those are your CEO, your CFO, and all that of the organization that are just gone, and you're left to Jules. And Chung, another, wasn't he a captain? Am I wrong? Right, Joe?
I believe he was elected the captain at some point, yes.
Yeah. So, I mean, you the guys that are leaving the team, like you said, they're the guys that have secured the bag. They're the guys that have rings. But the biggest problem with the Patriots this year is just going to be, I think, honestly, is just a lack of on-the-field leadership, a lack of that in the locker room leadership and the mentoring that goes to a guy like Cannon can – mentor who's. I'm being told by my girlfriend that I'm being very loud right now, and I need to shut up. So I'm gonna calm it down just a little bit. That being said,
I want to go right on your quick. I'll let you calm down for a second. The 2019 team captains for the New England Patriots. David Andrews, who is going to play, he's opting in. That's been reported. Mm-hmm. Although his health is still a concern. But I know that he's someone that said, I had my time off last year. I can't miss another year. I'm not going to do that to Belichick. Of course, Tom Brady. Devin McCourty, which we do expect him, and he will opt out with Jason. Dante Hightower, that's an opt-out right there. Matthew Slater, which that's somebody I think that stays. I don't think he's somebody that will leave. Landon Roberts, who left as well, too. Mm-hmm. And the last one is James White, which we just alluded to. He could be somebody that ends up opting out. You're losing all your captain leadership right there. At the same time, just to spin this is great for those young players, cough, cough, Chase Winovich, that's already a fan favorite, to still be, hey, Bill, I don't care if World War V is going on outside. I'm here at Gillette Stadium. I'm here to put the work in. The older veterans, they put the work in for Belichick. They've won their Super Bowls. They don't really owe anything, and they don't owe anything to Belichick or the fans anymore. These young players do. They do have to still kind of here and show up to do everything.
This kind of reminds me of when with the Celtics when Kyrie and Hayward were injured, and it really boosted and increased the development or the speed of the development for Tatum and Jaylen Brown. I can see that being a big thing with the Patriots this year. Look, some of these senior guys have stepped out. They're not going to play this year. And a lot of the younger guys are going to, they're going to get more reps in practice. They're going to get more reps during the game. And then when all those guys hopefully come back, you have a more experienced younger core that was able to take advantage of the fact that they got to see the field a lot more.
I was just going to say, just thinking in my mind too about James White, is that Damian Harris was already spending time with Jarrett Stidham and working out with him. And if that's a guy that's opted out, or I'm just wondering how some of these off-season workouts have been happening secretly. What's been going on back there? I mean,
I'm just wondering why you would want to spend all this time with a backup quarterback. That just seems weird to me.
Oh, hey guys, I'm here too.
Hey Joe, how's it going?
Hey, what's going on? So my 2 pieces today, obviously very disappointing. I don't really think anyone saw Dante Hightower opting out, at least before this morning. That was breaking for me. Did not see that happening at all. But we are where we are. Babs, before you even say, you mentioned it off air to me, but This might be retirement for Dante Hightower. I think like the love of the game, like you mentioned earlier, might be gone. I think the number one thing is his injury history. I mean, this guy's been battled and bruised up for a very, very long time. He's played a very, very good career. 3 rings, why even play anymore? There's no point for taking another year off just to come back and just hurt yourself again.
I just don't know where the money comes down to on this. And when you look at something like this, is the Marcus Cannon thing that I've been harping about and talking about for so long. Him opting out, does that mean that if he retires next year, he technically still gets his full guaranteed contract for 2020? Because that's an extra $4 million in his pocket. He's deferring it to how is all that going to work out? And
yeah,
I think
I'm not a big salary cap guy, so I couldn't tell you the details of that.
And I'm not trying to ask you to answer that. I'm just trying to talk as a whole. Maybe you have to think of this in your head, Patriots fans. There might be a reason why they have this money in the cap, but it rolls over to next year. They need to save that money because if a guy like, just an example, Dante Hightower scheduled to make $12 million this year. If he got cut, it was only a dead cap of $2 million this year for the Patriots. If he rolls over for next year, they might be like, here's your full payout of $12 million. That's what you're supposed to get last year because of COVID. You get a COVID payback, or at least they make 70%. There's money involved that we don't know. Hightower's going to retire. And think about another thing.
Isn't there a $150,000 payment that they get this year for opting out? So wouldn't that cover?
So the details on that are kind of spotty. It's kind of been differentiated between the entire league. So if you have a medical exemption, so say you have like sickle cell or something like that, you get $350,000 because it's not your fault that you're more susceptible to disease. But a guy like D'Anthony Thomas, the Ravens returner, he has no medical conditions that would prevent him from playing without more risk than anybody else. He'll get $150,000. So when you look at those guys that have lower salaries in general, there's no point of them staying anyway because you're not going to get paid big time money anyway. So there's no point. Just take the $150K, save your health, and go back next year. But one thing I do want to comment on before we kind of turn over here. Obviously, the McCourty twins have been kind of the center of this entire podcast so far. Whether or not they actually opt out or not remains to be seen. I think they do because they both have sickle cell as well. Number one thing I thought of off the bat once we talked about the McCourtys, Kyle Duggar. I mean, he was a huge spotlight guy during the NFL draft when we were covering it. Everybody's like, who the hell is this guy? D2 out of absolutely nowhere. And he comes in this locker room now, presumably being the starting strong safety for this team now. And it's kind of interesting. People are going to say, oh, maybe it's Cody Davis. Guys, Cody Davis sucks. He's not good at football. I'm sorry, he's not. So you're going to walk in this locker room with a typically very veteran spot for the Patriots. I mean, they have a long, deep history of starting safeties that extend into leadership, extend into on and off the field role models. And so you have a guy named Kyle Duggar who comes in from a D2 school, never learning the system, and he comes in heading that defense. That concerns me a little bit, but it also excites me. I'm going to tell you that way right now. Number one, he plays like Chung, but he's faster. And that's something we haven't really seen out of the back end of that safety duo in a long time, is the speed. McCourty, yes. Does he have wheels? Yes. Did he play cornerback for the first 2 seasons of his NFL career? Absolutely, he did. But guys, he's getting older and older. We know this, and he's starting to get more injury prone as his career, progresses. And Patrick Chung has slowed down tremendously as well the past couple of years. So you get that influx of speed at that strong safety position where Duggar can play inside, outside, in the box, and over the top. I'm excited to see Kyle Duggar take over this defense's back end and kind of solidify the backside of that defense. Obviously, you have elite cornerbacks with Stephon Gilmore. And I think J.C. Jackson is being slept on by the entire NFL. I think he's going to have a tremendous year this year, too. Don't shrug at me, Babs.
That's what I said. But that's what I said earlier this week. Like that, J.C. Jackson was like one of the things that you have to look out for in terms of the Patriots this year. And I said he's been overshadowed by Stephon Gilmore's play last year, especially, and he got overshadowed by the McCourtys itself too. But he's had those people to teach him. And J.C. Jackson's going to be an unrestricted free agent after this year. He's the guy that needs to play this year. He's the guy that needs to show up.
I agree with you 100%. Yeah. But Jay, I want to go back to something you said earlier about leadership quality. Obviously, a huge concern now when you have guys like Brady leaving, Gronk's gone, Dante Hightower opting out, and McCourty's presumably opting out as well. And when I think about this, and you have Cam Newton coming in, who's not a traditional Patriots leader by any sense of the word. He's loud, he's obnoxious, he's not a Bill Belichick typical guy. I looked at Jarrett Stidham, and a lot of people are going to laugh at me for saying that. I looked at Jarrett Stidham for that quote-unquote veteran leadership. Second-year pro, and the number one thing why I say that, we interviewed Drew Lieberman, who is the receivers coach, receiver guru for Mohamed Sanu. We just moved in with them a couple weeks ago. Interview went great, by the way. Thanks, Drew, again, for coming on. But he spoke about Stidham like he was the second coming. I mean, he talked about Cam a lot, too. He said he likes Cam's energy a lot. But the number one thing he told me about Stidham was his poise and confidence directing these guys around the field. He knows the playbook in and out, cadences, audibles, where everyone on that offense is supposed to be. And when you have a leader like that in only his second year, where Bill Belichick's been on record saying Stidham, it seems to be the next starter. Like he hasn't been shy about saying that Stidham is going to be, or he has confidence at least in Stidham being the next guy. So I think he walks into the locker room confident, ball swinging below his belt, and just comes in. I'm not even joking. I think he comes in, with some ferocity and saying, "Hey, this is my locker room now, guys. Let's make a playoff run."
And I'm going to take that point to say, this is what I really liked about this year was we talked about this in a different aspect. Who is the face of the New England Patriots? Who's going to end up grabbing that brass ring and saying, I'm running this franchise? And it's going to start with Julian Edelman. And Julian
100%.
Edelman's a guy that's putting everything out there, ball so well. Does Julian Edelman, though, he's not your long-term guy. He's not your guy that's going to be your captain for the next 5 years because he might be out after next year.
I'm telling you right now, Babs, if not for the whole COVID situation, I thought he was going to Tampa. I thought we were going to trade him for a low draft pick.
I know you were all over that. I agree, but I think he's going to stay loyal to the brand. I think he's going to stay loyal to Belichick. That's going to be the difference between the Cam Newton and Stidham thing. This is the other thing. Cam Newton's play might be fantastic during training camp. What's he doing behind the scenes? How's he acting with all the players? Is he treating everybody kind of equal? You know how we've always been fed. Tom Brady's locker's right in the middle with everybody. He's always like front and center stage, but he always steals the team around him. Stidham got to learn that for at least 1 year and got to see that for last year, even with it being Brady's last year, and Brady went through some turmoil, I'm sure, during that year. I'm very interested to see that with Stidham in this case and Cam Newton. I will say this about Cam Newton. He's putting a lot of focus into his production company. He's putting a lot of focus into different things on social media. Bill Belichick might not like that. He might be like, I get it. Go do your thing, this and that. But now when time comes and it's training camp, it's got to be very careful the words you say out there on social media. You got to be very careful what you do out there. Have your fun time in your off season, but this is the time now. It's sad because we're not going to see anything this week. It's all just testing and film. We're not going to see anything probably next week. It's going to be a little bit. These are little underlying things to earn Stidham his starting job week one.
I agree with you about the Cam and everything. And obviously, as a big editor guy, I love the content because it gives me just more stuff to put out. And that's obviously a biased point of view. But as a Patriots and a football fan in general, like it was exciting at first. Now it's kind of starting to piss me off. Like you're starting to take away from the team atmosphere. And I don't think it's selfish to say that either. Like I understand you're building a personal brand. You're building the whole comeback story. The next comeback player of the year candidate stuff. I understand that. But dude, training camp's here. It's team first. This is Bill Belichick's way. It always has been. And he has to get on a schedule with that and kind of recognize that, hey, I'm not in Carolina anymore. This is not a one-trick pony show. This is a team. And so it's going to be interesting to see how that aspect of Cam Newton shifts during training camp because I think it has to if he wants to be the starter.
All right, let me bump in. I vehemently disagree with both of you guys right now. So when it comes to Stidham learning for the 1 year, you talk about Brady, he had his locker right in the middle of the locker room and surrounded by all the guys and hoorah, what a great leader and all that. Cam Newton has already been that guy in the locker room. He's already been a leader. His teammates in Carolina had nothing but good things to say about the guy. He's already been an NFL MVP. He does all this stuff off the field, but in the locker room and on the field, other than that one point in the Super Bowl, like the guy gives it everything he's got. And
right. That's a fair point, but I want to counter real quick before we move on here.
Sure.
I understand. Yeah, leadership quality is there. His teammates have gushed about him. I agree with you.
Stidham is learning. Cam's already there.
Right. Exactly. No, I would tend to agree with you on that for most part. But one thing I have to say, the Carolina Panthers aren't like a historically successful team. So when you look at it outside of 2015, Cam Newton's records, I mean, they're not anything to write home about. So it comes down to whether being a good leader in the Carolina Panthers locker room looks different than the New England Patriots locker room because success is breeded from within. And if you're, a leader on one team, that's great. But if you're not producing on the field, it doesn't matter.
Tell you what, man, it's easy to be a leader for a team that's always winning. It's a lot harder to be a leader.
But here's the
people
problem.
Listen to you when you're losing.
Jay, the problem's not can Cam Newton lead this team because he can, and I hear you 100%. But you already have Jarrett Stidham, who's already acting like that. It's gonna be the whole alpha male versus alpha male, and who's gonna be the true leader, and which player is gonna buy.
It's gonna be exciting to see. Yeah,
And that's a great thing because could that split the locker room a little bit? It might in certain days. Certain days people might be more team Cam or more
You
team
think maybe
Stidham.
it already has with certain people working out with certain people?
I think it has 100%.
I think maybe, but I think when it comes down to it, you know how they had. All right, so just an example. There was open competitions across the league every single year, but it always seems one guy always seems to be favored to win the job, and the coach kind of shows that bias towards that player. I'm interested to see, without the veteran leadership in this locker room, whether or not the players revolt against Bill if he's showing favoritism to Stidham, especially. They're like, hey, Cam Newton's a former MVP. Like, why isn't he getting a fair shot? I think that could split the locker room, and it's not.
You also have to understand, a lot of these players already have a relationship with Cam Newton. The guy's a veteran. Guys, just because you don't play on the same team as the guy doesn't mean you're not friends. Doesn't mean you're not doing like off-season appearances and going to Pro Bowls. I mean, we don't really go to Pro Bowls much, but these guys, they share agents. They share Under Armour contracts and all that good stuff. So a lot of these guys on the team are probably already friends with Cam Newton and have been before they even knew who Jarrett Stidham even was.
I think the loss of some of the veterans on the team, though, to get this adjustment period with someone like a Cam Newton coming in here, I actually want to look back on when Cam Newton officially came to the Patriots. I want to see all those players that tweeted those eye emojis, the ones that were like, "Oh, damn, we got Cam Newton."
It was all defense.
And I want to know who's opted out so far. I want to know who's the ones that have supported it, but now are not going to be on the New England Patriots this season.
Well, I know for a fact that McCory's tweeted something out. I know Stephon Gilmore did as well, and they were kind of gushing about it. But it's mostly defensive guys that tweeted that out, and that's more a testament to them wanting to challenge in practice to be better prepared for all games and all scenarios.
You stink. You're too easy to pick
Exactly. Exactly. But it kind of worries me that offensive guys don't come out and stand for this guy. I mean, obviously it was an early period. It was kind of just reactive based on very, very small information, leaks and stuff like that when Cam Newton signed. But now that it's kind of settling in here, you see guys working with both Stidham and Sanu. Not Sanu, Stidham and Newton. Sanu worked out with both of them. Edelman worked out with both of them. And you see even David Andrews, who's actually been, in Stidham's camp for a long time. Their wives are best friends. And I've heard a rumor going around that actually Andrews is meeting up with Cam Newton later this week to work out. I can't name the source. But that's interesting, too, because I think one thing I talked about with Drew Lieberman, who is the coach we already mentioned, one of the most important relationships on the football field is a center and a quarterback. Getting that timing down, and a relationship needs to be built there. Because if you can't trust your center, you're not going to have a good football team. You saw it last year even with Ted Karras filling in for David Andrews. It took them, I think, 3 or 4 weeks before they actually had a solidified snap that actually made sense for both.
I'm just remembering that first game, those snaps that were just horrible.
Exactly. And so when there's no consistency between the center and a quarterback, that worries me too.
They're just throwing rainbows. It said like the Redskins game, like they're just lollipops, dude.
I know,
they were like punts at no end.
And especially a guy for Tom Brady who thrives on getting the ball out quickly. There's an extra second and a half he doesn't have the ball in his hands. That's a problem. But for Stidham, I think it'll be a little bit different. And obviously, there's going to be a different offensive scheme implemented completely. McDaniels is having a field day just drawing plays up in his head right now.
Before we go on to the rest of the NFL, because I know Stafford really wants to touch on that, just your take of who should we be watching? We'll start with Jay. Who should you be watching this training camp now that you've seen some of these opt-outs and the other potential opt-outs? Give me somebody that Pats fans keep this guy in your head because he's going to be a starter now for the New England Patriots. I know we've kind of already said a Kyle Duggar, maybe a Yanni Kajus. Is there somebody else out there we should be looking at?
As far as someone who's replacing?
Yeah, like whether it's going to be a replacement, most likely, yeah. Or
yeah,
with the starting job.
I think we talked about it with Duggar. Honestly, that's the one coming in for Chung. He's the guy that, like we talked about with coming from D2 and coming against just a higher level of competition that he's just never faced before. So that's the one I'm looking forward to seeing if his just physical tools can come through with the coaching and just show up on Sundays. So that's the guy I'm looking forward to seeing the most.
Yeah, and this is really the only season why I'm pissed the preseason's gone now, because this would have been the most entertaining preseason football for Patriots in the last 20 years. Imagine watching Stidham versus Cam for 4 straight games. That would have been must-watch TV for anyone in the NFL.
I've never wanted the Patriots to be on Hard Knocks, but this would be a fantastic
It would be a great year.
Fantastic year.
But my pick to kind of watch in training camp, I think, can't surprise people, Damian Harris. And I say that only because of how much I despise Sony Michel. And I don't want to say that, in too much generality. I know. But hear me out. I prefer running backs, this is a personal preference, that can actually make their own space and make their own cuts and get open by themselves. It's been proven Sony Michel the past couple seasons, he needs a fullback, a legitimate fullback to actually clear that, play that way through the hole so we can actually get into space and make something happen. And he's not elusive as much as people want to believe. Like, he really isn't. He's a downhill runner, north-south. He doesn't really make a lot of interesting, cool moves like LaShawn McCoy does. So I'm looking at Damian Harris to kind of take that step up and be like, hey, like, I'm a good football player. People forget that Josh Jacobs, when he was out of college, he was splitting carries with Damian Harris. There's a reason why. And Damian Harris falls to us in I think the 3rd or 4th round. And it's kind of a steal, and people kind of forget about him because he didn't play last year. Like, a lot of Patriots players don't play their first year, and then can break out the second year. And so my guy, Damian Harris, that's a guy to watch throughout training camp and early parts of the
I just
season.
love the fact that you don't like Sony Michel because he can't move like LaShawn McCoy.
I'm not even joking. Like, I just don't think he's as good as everybody thinks he is. And I think he needs an elite offensive line and an elite fullback to be very productive in the NFL.
This is going to have to be his make or break year. You've seen him with an elite offensive line 2 years ago. They won the Super Bowl. You've seen it last year with the terrible offensive line. He still was pretty productive.
Great running backs make the best of their scenario. Look at Adrian Peterson, his entire year in Minnesota Vikings. Like, his team sucked. They were awful. They had no good parts of that team besides him.
And you know that running backs have a time clock on them. They're just, there's only X amount of years. The one thing I always loved about the Patriots is how many fresh legs they always have coming in there. So I want to say this one last thing about the Patriots, then we'll move on. So the Patriots had to get rid of pretty much, they cut 9-10 players down. They had to go from 90 to 80 right away. After today's opt-outs, guess what happens? You have a little bit more room on your roster. What's the first move they make? They bring back Will Hastings. So from Auburn, Stidham's former teammate right there. Is there anything that you should be reading into that he was the first guy they brought back after the opt-outs? And he's already getting used to the whole, we cut you, you bring me back, you cut you, bring it back, Belichick type of moves right there.
Dude, he's a Braxton Berrios clone. And I'm really not excited about it. But, hey, if you play with Stidham and helps him kind of transition into the starting role, go for it.
He's an Auburn guy. He makes both the quarterbacks happy.
Yeah, true.
All right, Stafford, I'm going to throw this to you right now. Is there anything else? Patriots dominated the NFL news in my mind today. There was another domination of the news. You could talk to us about anything else that's been going on in the NFL.
All right, number one thing I want to talk about before we get into the contract stuff with Joey Bosa that just broke, I think a half hour ago. Jamal Adams. Now, Jamal Adams, I thought he was going to Dallas the entire time. And it just came out recently. He was actually actively advocating to teams, specifically the Cowboys, during games saying, come get me. First of all, disrespectful. I don't care what team you're on, disrespectful. Respect your teammates enough to do that in private. But number two, going to Seattle was the best case scenario for all teams involved. Jamal Adams fixes that entire secondary. Not that it needed fixing. I mean, Shaq Griffin's been a tremendous cornerback for there in a long, long time. And Quandre Diggs actually broke out as a free safety last year in Seattle as well after that trade from Detroit. And so you kind of plug Jamal Adams in, and he becomes essentially your Cam Chancellor. And we're starting to see maybe a rebirth of the Legion of Boom. I think Jadeveon Clowney comes back now. After Jamal Adams, makes that transition to Seattle, I think it's a no-brainer. Jadeveon Clowney's like, hey, I'll take, the $15 million you offered me that you lowballed me with. I want to play on this team. Seattle, I think when we talked about our NFL predictions, 2 months ago now, oh my God, that was a long time ago, we all picked Seattle as a Super Bowl favorite. And that only increases now because of Jamal Adams. He is a top 3 safety across the board for everyone I know that knows football. He's a top 3 safety. So when you inject that kind of talent into an already talented defense that's now bringing back Jadeveon Clowney, supposedly, that's an elite, scary, scary situation. Now, one thing I want to say before we kind of get too Seahawks, sided here. The Jets had a great turnout for that trade. And it sucks to use the trade away. Scary turnout. And
that's future building.
Whenever you have to trade away a franchise cornerstone, it sucks, no matter what team you are. It's terrible, especially a guy in your youth who's made 2 All-Pro teams when he's 24 years old. That's unheard of. But given the circumstance, they have no leverage. Everybody knows he wants out. He just trashing Adam Gase like he was like a kid in a candy store. And so you walk into that negotiating table knowing you don't really have a lot to bargain with, and you still walk away with 2 first-round picks, a starting safety, and a 4th-round pick. All right, the Jets GM, as bad as they have been historically for the past 20 or 30 years, props, dude. That's a tremendous haul for Jamal Adams.
Hey, Joe, remind me what we got for Garoppolo again?
A 2nd-round pick.
Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. That was embarrassing. I'm still pissed about that. But anyway, Jamal Adams, it was a great trade for both teams, in my opinion. I mean, obviously, if you're the Jets, you want to keep Jamal Adams. Any team in the NFL wants to keep Jamal Adams on their roster. But considering the circumstances they were in, getting that haul was a great, great move for the Jets and Gang Green. Another thing, though, I feel so bad for Sam Darnold even more now. You're stuck with another year of Adam Gase. You drafted Denzel Mims out of Baylor, who isn't that good at football either, I don't think. I think he's going to flame out just like Devin Smith did in New York just a couple years ago. And you didn't really invest in the offensive line outside of that top pick with Mekhi Becton, who I think is vastly overrated too. He's a very athletic guy for his size, but scheme-wise with their blocking, I don't really buy that either. So, Sam Darnold's sitting on an island essentially, and his talent's being wasted. Then again, it's the New York Jets, so I'm not surprised. But just to kind of summarize here, both teams won this trade. I don't really think there's a way to look at it besides that. The Seahawks get an injection of talent that's unparalleled, and the Jets get their future building blocks. So those are my thoughts. Jay, Babs, you want to comment on the Jamal Adams trade?
I mean, like you said, I think it works out for both sides. I'm actually more shocked that he actually left. I feel like he didn't want to leave New York, but you know me, I've been Team Seattle. I think this is just a way that they're trying to go all in. It kind of feels weird because they're kind of going all in, and who the fuck knows? Jay's already been saying it. There's gonna be no season. Like, what are you guys doing this for? Do you guys really think that it's worth to trade your future of your franchise right now and your picks when there might not even be a season? How is this going to affect college football, and how is everything going to happen with the NFL draft next year or the year after that? Is it even worth doing this?
On the flip side of that actually helps their stock, because the harder it is to scout, the less valuable those picks actually become. And so instead of getting those two real first round, selections, you're kind of getting a higher round, second round selection just off base of you don't have a lot of scouting to base your stuff off of. And so in terms of that, that's a good move for the Seahawks. And on top of that, Jamal Adams is 24 years old and made 2 All-Pro teams. This is not a one-year rental thing. They're going to pay him. They're going to make the top paid safety in the NFL is going to be Jamal Adams in 2 years' time. You're locking this guy for 5 years. This is a cornerstone for your team for the next 10 years.
I was going to say, I like what you said, Legion of Boom 2.0. Yeah. That's what they're trying to recreate there. We worked with Russell Wilson already. He needs that. They need the defense there. They need something going on. You know what Russell Wilson can bring to you. And I still think that Wilson needs another solid offensive weapon over there to get that team going. But
did someone say Greg Olsen?
He said solid.
Jay, do you have any thoughts?
Oh, about Jamal Adams?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not in the AFC East. That's dope. I mean, honestly, that's all I care about.
Still got to throw to him on week 2, by the way, when he starts.
I'd rather once a year than twice a year, baby.
Can't argue with you there. Also, one thing that broke, like I said 30 minutes ago, Joey Bosa got paid. And it's kind of shocking for me to see that, because the Chargers historically are very cheap with their contracts because this is their main source of income. That team is their only source of it. They're not a rich family when it comes to ownership. And then they end up paying Joey Bosa. Let me get the figures here so I'm not speaking out of my ass here. 5 years, $135 million with a guaranteed $102 million guaranteed. That's unbelievable for any Chargers player, any NFL player in general. Joey Bosa just set the precedent for defensive linemen going forward, and now I kind
of.
Tell Joey Bosa to buy him a new internet.
I will say about the Joey Bosa thing is that he's not opting out anytime soon. You're staying.
He's not taking $150K.
It kind of makes it this is kind of like a Pat Mahomes type of thing. You pay Pat Mahomes $500 million. They're going all in on Joey Bosa. Is that going to be helpful, or is it just going to be like, we're trying to get a name to put asses in the seats? Do they not think they can get anybody else?
Were you asking me or Joe? Joe, did you hear that?
I didn't hear a thing that you cut out for me.
Gotcha. No,
well, Joey Bosa said I'll be sending you a check in the mail soon for your Wi-Fi and a computer.
Sounds good.
Look, here's the thing. When Joey Bosa falls into your lap, I mean, I know they drafted him or something, but when you get a guy like that in your team, you can't let him go. You 100% can't let him go. So generational talent. He could be or is the corner. Adams. Yeah. Fair, but I like the guys up front. I place a little more importance on the guys up front than I do than the defensive backs. But especially like you said, with it being San Diego and just their whole whatever the fuck they're doing over there. You finally give a guy, you got a star, and it's Southern California and it's the good life, and it shouldn't be hard to keep guys happy over there. You got dope jerseys, you play in a dope town and dope weather, and
You have a whole 7 fans.
7 fans. Hey, I mean, the NBA is playing playoffs in front of 4 people, so money talks.
Always
$102 million guaranteed. I'll play in front of anybody.
Marquise Goodwin for the Eagles. He opted out as well too.
Yep.
I just wanted to mention that because, Carson Wentz has never had a wide receiver really, and then all of a sudden you're losing a speedy wide receiver, Marquise Goodwin. It means they're just going to sign Jordan Matthews to another contract. They always get that guy over there. That was another opt-out today. I still think, again, in terms of the opt-outs and everything around the league, there's still going to be more players that are doing this. They have till August 1st. This was just day one. And then, again, this was a quote that I heard about the Marcus Cannon thing. That Cannon said this. There's enough players that are going to opt out that can fulfill a 53-man roster. That means to me, there's at least 50 people that are opting out, and that hasn't happened yet. We haven't had 50 players opt out yet. I think there are a couple bigger names around the league in general that will come out soon. And I will say this. Let's say today was day one of testing on Tuesday, right? And then they get their test back on Wednesday and say certain players got tested positive for COVID. Certain players might be like, you know what? I'm not doing this. I'm staying home. That's it. There's no way it's going to go around. It's not going to be helpful. Final thoughts around the table. I'll start with Jay the Pats fan.
I just want to reiterate, there's going to be no 2020 NFL season. There's just no way that's going to be a possibility. I just don't see logistically how you can keep players safe. You just look at the interaction between the O-line and the D-line. It's honestly just a perfect storm. It's basically just like COVID-19 is out there rooting for an NFL 2020 season just to keep it alive. But like you said, there's the dominoes are falling, kind of like the post I made this morning. I think once you start seeing big names like Dante come out, you're going to see other big names come soon. I'm seeing another, maybe not tomorrow, but what do you say? The deadline was August 1st. So it's Friday, I think. Yeah. I think as we get closer to Friday, you're just going to start seeing boom, 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 where it's just going to be one after the other. And just Twitter is going to be F5 season all day on Friday.
And like I said earlier about the McCourty situation, they're going to do it. They're a big name. And what do teams like to do? We'll wait till tomorrow to release the information. We'll wait till Thursday to release the information. Sometimes you like to stretch these things out, and I'm sure there's players out there that are waiting. It's about attention. Like, you want attention. Hey, I'm opting out, by the way. Just everyone follow me. Like, look what I'm saying right now. Pay attention to why I'm doing it. I need to go out there and speak about it. So,
tell you who's not opting out. TB12. Because he's got the cure. He's got the strength and the power, whatever the fuck his stupid pills are, but he's not going nowhere.
Mark Bertrand today, I was listening to Zoe was in shambles because all this news was breaking out. He's a football guy. He was in shambles today. Mark Bertrand was talking about Rob Gronkowski tweeted out like it's go time, and then Tom Brady like retweeted and said like ready or whatever it is. Do you think that they are happy right now? Do you think they're dancing and saying, like, look at the Patriots, everyone's leaving now, these players are opting out, veteran leadership's opting out, I'm glad we jumped off that sinking ship. Do you feel that they're like that?
I don't think they're happy. They're those, you look at the relationship between Hightower, McCourty, and Brady. I mean, he didn't leave ill will. He didn't burn any bridges on his way out. As far as his with the fans, yeah, but with his teammates, no. So I don't think that they're happy. I think that they're just wishing them well and respecting the decisions that they make. That's just the kind of guys that Brady and Gronk are. But I bet you they're happier that they're in Tampa. You're absolutely right. But I don't think they're happy that all this is going on in New England now.
What do you think about Tom Brady's Instagram story post from the other day with his kids in the boat?
You're trying to get me in trouble, man. I'm gonna be at Publix. I'm gonna run
You
into
didn't
these
zoom.
kids.
No, I have you on record saying I'm not zooming in, and you tag Caden on it. Caden's under the age of 18.
Yeah,
he can,
Caden can
he can,
zoom
be,
in.
he can
I'm not
do
zooming
that.
in.
It's a different culture type of thing.
Yeah. So here's what so for those of you who don't know, Brady's posting pictures, in Hillsborough Bay of the family on the yacht, and he's got a little girl, and little girl I guess was getting sunbathing, stomach down, so everything I guess was kind of on the up and up, but I think she's at an age now where maybe it's time. I know this is like murky waters. Like I'm trying to choose my words very, very carefully.
Except with the Epstein stuff coming out there, Tom. Like you got to be very careful what you do.
Yeah, I just and I think it was brought up in the chat that maybe this is like a Brazilian culture thing, and I don't know. I've never been to Brazil. I'm not an expert on Brazilian culture, but this is Tampa, and I do live in Tampa, and I kayak in the same waters that Brady boats in. I'm going jet skiing this weekend in the same waters that he boats in, and I'm not trying to be anywhere. Normally, if I'm on a jet ski in the water and I see Tom's boat, oh man, I'm hitting the clutch and I'm balls to the wall to that boat. I'm going nowhere near that thing. I'm not trying to end up on a list.
Maybe that's why he purposely does it. I'm going to say this. I know I got to toss it over to you, Joe. I'm going on record here. I'm about to have 2 daughters coming soon. Let me tell you something. I have, Snapchat. I use that from time to time to keep up with some of my older friends. I've seen Snapchats and like story posts of, when you have babies and even when they're baby daughters and they're not wearing anything, like no top, I still wouldn't post that on any social media type of shit. I don't care if they're babies. Like I really and I said this to Michelle and she agreed with me. I'm always going to keep them covered up when it comes down to social media. You don't know what fucking sick freaks there are out there that will want to screenshot that. And even though it means absolutely nothing, it's something.
And here's the thing with Tom Brady, you had the whole, Portnoy thing. You think like lesson learned, man, like do you like I think I said that, like do you, but like don't put it on Instagram.
It would not shock me that in the deep webs of the internet, and that exists, that there are nude photos out there of Tom Brady's kids that have surfaced somewhere and someone has something, because there are fucking sick freaks out there that are taking these pictures out there and sharing them. I mean, if you go public, you're going to get crucified doing that.
I mean, they don't need to find him. He's posting them, so.
Yeah, that's true. Joe Stafford, let's get out of this conversation. Joe Stafford, because you can take a lot of stuff we said out of context. Joe Stafford, final thought.
Yeah, by the way, I'm the editor for this show. If you ever cross me, I'm re-editing all of this stuff, and you're going to be in trouble. But for those of you who are actually listening, I have a hat on right now. I don't know if you guys can see this. And it's a Saints hat. So I'm jumping ship. No, I'm just playing. No, but for real, the final thoughts, just keep your eyes on Kyle Duggar and keep your eyes on Damian Harris. Those are my 2 picks to kind of just take a huge step this year and just surprise some people. I do believe that. And also, just to spoil your night a little bit, Jarrett Stidham's your week 1 starter.
My final thought is this. I want to read out a tweet that was put out there by your man, Chad Ochocinco. And it was deleted, a deleted tweet. And his quote was, "No, it wasn't a joke. I really took Viagra before games. The increase in blood flow made me unbelievably explosive in and out of my roots." I mean, they say football is a game of inches. So, I mean, that's Chad Ochocinco.
Corinthians 2:14.
That's been Boston's Big 3, episode 67. Check out next episode. We're going to be doing a little interview with Joe Stafford and Chris Matthews, former Seattle Seahawk wide receiver. You check that out. That'll be episode 68. That's going to be coming up very, very soon. We appreciate everybody out there. Myself, Joe Stafford, Jay the Pats fan. See you later.
Deuce.